Hey guys, I am back and I have two Vosteed knives here. And they're actually the same knife, just different editions of these knives. One of these is standard. It is the Racoon from Vosteed. This one here came to me directly from Vosteed. They sent it so we could check it out and open it up. It just so happens, by coincidence, that very recently we got this exclusive edition one from the Going Gear EDC Club. And we're going to look at both side by side. And it's really cool that I have this one, which is kind of a little bit more premium, but we have the regular one to look at side by side, and we kind of take a look and see what makes them different. Now, I've looked at 2 or 3 Vosteed knives on the channel already, and I'll tell you what, I'm pretty impressed with how they do business. I'm impressed with their packaging, with their production standards and everything. So let's get right into this. And so all of them come in a really nice box. It's an aluminum box. You can reuse the box. I don't know if it's made to be watertight, but it seals pretty good. So every knife that I've seen from them so far comes in this box. This one's a little bit dented. That's probably my fault because I had it in another box with some other stuff, but nice box to keep stuff in. Ethan took another Vosteed box, and you should feel the coating on it. It's almost like if you're familiar with like a 2K soft touch, that's what it feels like. Ethan took a box from another Vosteed, and that's his fire starting kit. So inside, we have some springs, replacement springs if you want to do that. We have, I've never seen this one before. That's a great sticker. Okay, we have a Vosteed patch. They give you some swag, you know. Very nice microfiber cloth. Not the finest quality one that I've seen in some knives, but definitely better than some of the other ones. And I don't know, I was going to compare it to somebody's, I can't remember right now, but it's a nice feeling one. And then you've got, you know, how to maintain in several languages. Okay. This is, you know, just a Velcro pad. You put a name tape or anything else you want on it. Comes with another little Vosteed patch. The case. The cases, I love that they have this kind of bright orange. I just like the look of it. It's a little bit of padding. I've seen better. I've seen more, but it's a little bit. Now, some of the key differences you're going to notice here, you notice we got spare Omega springs. So this is an axis type lock, whereas this one is a button lock. But overall shape and dimensions and all that other stuff, it's pretty much the same. This one has G10 scales, the standard. This one has, I can't remember what it's very, I'll put it in text because I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's very similar to Kiranite. A very nice acrylic polymer kind of thing. And I will also say that Going Gear has multiple exclusive editions of the Racoon in their lineup. This is just the one that they sent. There's a really nice one with aluminum, has a little jade inlay. But anyway, so I love that. Oh, there we go. It's kind of tuned just perfect right out of the box. No blade play, really. And of course, I'm going to want to get a good shot of the grind lines on there because I've always been a sucker for really nice grind lines. And you see we've got some beautiful satin grind lines. Both these knives are, I mean, they're basically full flat grind. You can call it a very tall saber grind if you want because it has just that little bit of the spine there. But they're basically full flat grind drop point shapes. The G10 version is just slightly heavier because that G10 is heavier than this acrylic polymer. You have deep carry clip that is reversible left or right, and you get a filler tab, which is not something you see every day on more affordable knives. I won't say lower end, but more affordable knives. One of the biggest kind of differences you're going to see in this Going Gear exclusive is you get the button lock. Whereas this is Sandvik 14 C28N steel on the standard, we've got Nitro V on the Going Gear exclusive one. You can feel a little bit of difference in the opening, and I think some of that can be attributed to the lock system. Some of it can also be attributed to the general weight of the knife. The handle weight and bulk kind of hits a little differently when it opens. The blades weigh the same thing pretty much. It's not like you get a whole lot more mass with one steel or the other. It's not a density issue like, you know, tungsten versus steel. Tungsten versus steel for the same size would be more weight. Aluminum versus steel for the same size, the steel is more weight. These two steels are pretty much the same in terms of density and weight. I mean, if we were talking about a big billet, it might be different. The properties of Nitro V and 14C28N we'll talk about in a little bit. But because of the locking systems, you know, you do feel a little bit of difference in the snap when you open them up. You can also see how much blade to lock contact you get with the axis type versus the button lock type. Either one of them, though, is one-handable either way. I'm very comfortable and very familiar with using the axis type. And I say axis type because I don't know what Vosteed calls theirs. I'll put it in text. Remember that the patent on this, is this micarta? This might be micarta rather than G10. Sorry. The mechanics of the axis lock is no longer patent. The patent has expired. So anybody can use it. The name Axis Lock is trademarked by Benchmade, so you have to call it something else. And companies call it all sorts of things. But the actual mechanics behind it, anybody is free to use. And it's a really great locking system on a EDC to kind of light to medium use folding knife. I would never use it on a heavy use folding knife, although Benchmade did, on a side note, with the 810 and the 275, made a much bulkier axis lock for those knives, the Contigo and the Adamus, for using them as like heavy-duty knives. But that's neither here nor there. Both knives, I mean, obviously they're the same shape. Yeah, this is definitely micarta, sorry. Same shape, comfortable in your hand, EDC sized. Again, this being micarta would be a little bit grippier, I think, feeling it, although the Going Gear one, you can see, has a little bit of machined texture on it, but it is still not as grip. Micarta is a naturally grippy material, and the one big advantage that your micarta handle is going to have over this, or the aluminum, of course, is that micarta, especially when it gets wet, it maintains a grippiness that other materials aren't going to have because of the fibers that are part of the material. So this is definitely going to give you a good grip. I just noticed too, jimping. No, I guess it's the same. I was going to say jimping seems a little heavier here, but it's about the same. Yeah, it really is. They both have black G10 backspacers, so they're not skimping on material in either place. The clip retention feels about the same either way there. And you know what? I'm going to be very official here. I did mention that one feels a little heavier than the other, so let's find out. Here's the standard version, right at 3 ounces, and here is the Going Gear version, right at 3 ounces. Okay, you know what? There could be a little, mind effect knowing that this is a lighter material. But I swear, this feels heavier in my hand. It really does. Excellently finished. And we already did this on the Going Gear unboxing, but we'll do it again. Also, excellently finished. I mean, they're two knives from the same production company, so I'm not expecting there to be any difference there. So let's shift over and talk about one of the other big differences in these two models of the knives. Let's talk about the steel. Not a lot of people understand Nitro V, and it is relatively new. It's not brand new. The first time I ever saw it was on a TJ Schwartz design through Mass Drop, the Perpetua, which I love. Oh man, and both of my Perpetuas are in storage right now. I wish I had one of them with me. Great knife. It's really good steel. So it is a steel that is only available from one supplier. It's a place called New Jersey Steel Baron. It's called Baron's Nitro V. The reason it's called Nitro V is because it has a higher enriched level of nitrogen and vanadium. Now, if you're not into the elemental things about steel, I won't go into it too much. Maybe if you guys are interested, I'll go into the metallurgy a little bit more. But basically, it gives it really good edge performance. It gives it a high hardness, and it gives it really good corrosion resistance. So we see Nitro V being used a lot in marine environments, wet environments. But in terms of EDC, it holds an edge really well. It maintains its form really well. It is not too hard. It's a little bit harder than some other steels to put that edge back on and maintain. But with some good sharpening skills, it's really not that much of a problem at all. But it's a great steel for EDC work, for some light duty work, things like that. End of story is Nitro V is really an improvement on ABEL, which has been a very good quality knife steel for a really long time. It's a bit more expensive to use than some other steels. I don't know. The opinions vary. Is it up there with like what we consider the super steels? Not exactly. But it's still better than a lot of standard EDC type knife steels. I really like Nitro V. From the minute I got my hands on it, I thought it was an exceptional performing EDC type steel. I really like it, but that's my opinion. Your 14C28N is a Sandvik steel, so it's that Scandinavian-made Swedish steel. It is also a very good EDC steel. Now, people sometimes compare it to a much improved 440A. Not a 440C because it has a much lower carbon content. That's good and bad. So the lower carbon content means we have a much better corrosion resistance. It also has implications for maintaining the edge, but in terms of what else it has, I hate, like I said, I'm trying not to get all into the chemical properties and the metallurgy but it also has extra phosphorus, sulfur, nitrogen. So again, really good corrosion resistance. It does hold an edge very well. And it is not too hard to perform maintenance on. Now, 14C28 is one of Mora's go-to stainless steels. They also use, what's the other one? 12C27, which is like a little downgrade. 14C28 is the improvement on it. These steels are compared a lot, very often. If I had to pick one of these, honestly, I would rather have the Nitro V than the 14C28, just because Nitro V does have the higher hardness, so it can hold an edge better, in my opinion. It'll hold an edge better. I'm not worried about the ease of sharpening because I know my sharpening skills, and I think a lot of people watching these videos do, so it's really not that hard, that much harder. Might be a little bit extra work, but if you take care of your edge to begin with, we're not worried about putting a brand new edge on. We're just worried about maintaining the edge that we have there. The corrosion resistance factor is a little bit higher on the Nitro V, I think. But 14C28 is still, it's not a bad steel. It's still a really good EDC steel, and a lot of companies use it. So the question is really, if you're looking at these two versions of this knife and you're considering getting one over the other, you have to ask yourself, what are your priorities? What are your philosophies of use? And what are you going to be using them for? If you're looking for something that is just a little bit easier to maintain and is a little less maintenance intensive, the standard, I'll just say, the standard Racoon is probably for you. 14C28 is probably a little bit easier to maintain in terms of your edge maintenance and things like that. If you're looking for a little bit of a more rugged steel, I would say probably the Nitro V. If you're just looking for standard EDC use, though, quite honestly, either one of these knives will do just fine for you. And in that case, we can look at other features. What kind of locking system do you like better? Do you like the axis type lock, or do you like the button lock? And that's personal preference. I will tell you, if you're not familiar with the button lock, you need to get used to it, because there are times where you can accidentally disengage that lock. Now, theirs is pretty good. There's a lot of travel space before it unlocks. There are some companies where the button lock, you hit it just a little bit and it will unlock on its own. This gives you, even if my thumb is all the way pressed on that scale, the knife still stays locked. And it's a little wobbly, but it still doesn't come out. You have to really mean it. There are some button locks that are not that forgiving though. But that's the first thing you want to ask. Personally, in my opinion only, I think that the axis lock is a little bit more stable than the button lock, just because it's a little harder. It's a lot harder to disengage by accident. However, there is a convenience factor, especially one-handed operation, to the button lock. It's just a lot easier than having to... Some people really have a lot of trouble doing a one-handed axis lock. Again, depending on hand size and your dexterity, one-handing the axis lock could be difficult for you, whereas the button just requires 2 fingers, basically. So that's something to consider. The grip on the knife, like we talked about, micarta is always going to be a grippier material unless it is like a coarse texture material intentionally, like a rough texture G10, or if they made this with a rougher texture. If you're not concerned about that, then it's not even a factor. They both weigh exactly the same, like we talked about. Shocking to me, they both have left and right capability. And then you might go down to, well, what's the cool factor on this? Do you care? Now, I know the Racoon comes in different colors, the standard, but do you want one of these fancier, cool factor is a thing. That does matter to people. I'm not going to lie. It matters to me sometimes. If you're hanging out with your knife bros and you pull something out of your pocket, yeah, you do want something that they're going to look at and be like, hey, what's that? Let me see it. Hand it over. Show it to me. So there are different factors to consider when you're deciding if you're into this. Like, I want to buy a Vosteed Racoon. Which one should I get? If someone were to ask me, what's your opinion? Which one? I would ask you a series of questions. And this is, people ask me, all the time, hey, I'm thinking of getting a knife. What should I get? And I'm like, you can't. Okay, I'm going to send you a 20 question questionnaire for you to fill out, for me to help tell you what kind of knife you should get. The quality on them is both very good. I love Vosteed's quality. Their production standards and everything are very good. I actually just noticed also, slightly different construction. You've got an extra set of frame screws on the button lock that you don't have on the axis type lock. Interesting. Okay. Both have skeletonized liners, by the way. So I wanted to do a side-by-side to show you a little bit of differences in this guy and this guy, standard edition and the Going Gear exclusive edition. I really like the Going Gear exclusive edition, again, not only just because of the Nitro V steel, but I really like this kind of pattern. It has a 3D depth to it that I think is really cool, and I like the button lock because of the one-handed ease. I've been comfortable with axis locks for years, so this is not that much of a problem for me. I do really like the grippiness of their micarta though too. It's really well done. So they're both really good knives. I could get behind both of them. So you guys, I would love to hear in the comments, which would you pick and why? Or if you could, because you theoretically could, would you swap blades? Would you like it better if you had, say, the Sandvik steel in this frame or the Nitro V in this frame? Would that make you happier? Because these, theoretically, you could do that. You could swap. So I hope you guys, maybe some of you learned a little bit about the steels. Maybe you learned a little bit about the mechanisms here. Maybe you saw something new for the first time. That's cool. Maybe we gained a subscriber or two through this video. That'd be cool too. I will put a link to Vosteed's website, since they were good enough to send me a knife. I'll also put a link to Going Gear, so you can check out if you want to see what the exclusive editions are of the Racoon, if you're thinking, and you can check that out too. But anyway, I appreciate you guys hanging with me. I'd really like to hear your opinions on which one you like better and why. And remember that you guys are all absolutely awesome. I appreciate every single one of you, and I'll be back again real soon.